It's a chilly, overcast morning on Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. We're in Garibaldi, Oregon, witnessing a sight that one does not get to see too often in the modern era: the sights and sounds of a steam locomotive heading out of town to begin a day's work. In this video, we're going to take a look at the operations on one of America's newest tourist lines, the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad. The train departs Garibaldi at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to begin its final run of the day as it heads north to the town of Rockaway Beach. The locomotive pulling the train this afternoon is former McCloud River Railroad number 25, a well-known star in the steam railroading community. She spent her entire working life on the McCloud River Railroad hauling lumber and other forest products until the 1950s when she was retired, and then was eventually restored for passenger service by the very same railroad company that she previously operated for. The locomotive has a long and rather interesting history behind her, but we'll get into more of that later. The Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad began service in 2003 and operates between the communities of Garibaldi, Rockaway Beach, and Wheeler, Oregon. The railroad operates on a 46-mile restored portion of the former Southern Pacific Tillamook branch. For the first few miles running north out of Garibaldi, the railroad hugs the northern shore of Tillamook Bay before running along the shore of the Pacific Ocean for the remaining distance. Our next location is the small coastal community of Barview, Oregon. This is where the line turns north away from the shore of Tillamook Bay and runs along the Pacific Ocean for the remaining distance to Rockaway Beach and then further north onto Wheeler. After passing through Barview, the train rolls along the east edge of Smith Lake as it continues northward. Barview is one of several small coastal communities that line the railroad along its route between Wheeler, Garibaldi, and Tillamook. Once the train clears the north edge of the lake, it will pass through the small town of Watsiko before arriving at its final destination of Rockaway Beach. The next morning, we're on board the train at the Garibaldi station as it is about to depart for the first run of the day for the Oregon Coastal Excursion. Sitting over on an adjacent track next to the main line, you can see one of the railroad's many pieces of rolling stock that is currently awaiting restoration. In addition to this wooden coach, the railroad also owns 2 Budd RDC passenger cars, along with several freight cars and a wooden caboose that are used for special photo charters on occasion. At 10 a.m. sharp, the engineer gives 2 short blasts on the whistle of the 25, and the train departs for the first run of the day northward to Rockaway Beach. As the train leaves town, we see 2 of the railroad's diesel locomotives parked on a nearby spur. The first engine we see is former BNSF SD9, number 6139. This locomotive was built in 1954 for the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad as number 337. The second engine we see is former Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad number 101, a GP9 that was built in 1955. At the time of its construction, number 101 was originally given the road number 6006. In addition to 101 and 6139, the railroad also owns and operates a former Great Northern Railway F7 that was built in the 1950s. As the train rolls into Rockaway Beach, we see the old red wooden caboose that is used for the Rockaway Beach Chamber of Commerce. Now that the train has come to a stop at the depot and we have disembarked, let's take a closer look at the locomotive providing the motor power for our train today. Number 25 is a 262 Prairie type locomotive that was built in 1925 by the American Locomotive Works for the McLeod River Railroad. It spent most of its working life on the McLeod, operating primarily between Pondosa and Whitehorse on the eastern end of the railroad. After retirement in the 1950s, it was stored in McLeod for several years until it was restored and used as an excursion locomotive for special occasions. During its time on the McLeod, number 25 also starred in 2 Hollywood motion pictures. In 1975, the locomotive traveled to the Tidewater Southern Railway in Central California to be filmed for the movie Bound for Glory. In 1986, it was filmed for the movie Stand By Me on home rails. Interestingly enough, number 25 is not the only steam locomotive from the McLeod River Railroad to star in Stand By Me. Number 19, a 282 Mikado that was built by Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1915, also starred in the movie. After the railroad chose to discontinue its excursion passenger operations in 2008, number 25 was retired again and was placed in storage in the McLeod Engine House until it was acquired by the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad 3 years later, and then moved to Garibaldi. At 10:30 a.m., the train begins the southbound return trip back to Garibaldi to pick up passengers for the next run of the day. After arriving back at Garibaldi later in the afternoon, we once again see number 25 heading out of town with the train for the last run of the day to Rockaway Beach and return. We catch the train again farther up the line, closer to Rockaway Beach, as the train passes through Watseko. The next afternoon, we're in Portland to check out the Oregon Rail Heritage Center and its vast collection of historic railroad artifacts. The crown jewels of the collection are the 3 steam locomotives that are owned by the city of Portland, which includes former Oregon Railway and Navigation Company number 197, seen here. The 197 is a P2 Class 462 Pacific that was built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1905. Upon the absorption of the OR&N by the Union Pacific in 1910, the locomotive fell under UP ownership and officially became Union Pacific number 3203 in 1923 when the locomotive was renumbered. Mounted on the wall next to the 197, we see a map of the state of Oregon that shows all the railroad lines that once plied their way across the state. Seen here on the adjacent track opposite the 197 is a former Santa Fe Alco PA that was built in 1946. The engine was painted up as a nickel plate locomotive when it was reacquired in 2000 from an operation in Mexico. This concludes our visit to the Pacific Northwest and to the Oregon Rail Heritage Foundation and the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad. We hope you've enjoyed this look at steam on the Oregon coast, and until next time, thanks for watching.